I first met him by a trash can spilling coffee, his old hands cleaning the mess everyone ignored. My family called him that useless hourly hire, but the day they threw me out, he walked into the boardroom in a tailored suit. It was then I realized I was not watching him. He was testing me, and that test would decide who lost everything. My name is Aspen Cook. I'm nearing 30. I'm a project manager at Skyline Vertex Solutions, and I am watching a man clean up spilled coffee on his hands and knees. This isn't just any room. This is the main boardroom, the one with the 30-foot mahogany table that costs more than my apartment building and a view of the city that makes billionaires feel humble. I'm standing on the outside of the glass, waiting for the privilege of being called in. The meeting, a review of quarterly logistics projections, has been temporarily paused. That's the corporate jargon for my uncle, Marcus Cole, the acting CEO, gestured too wildly while dismissing a subordinate and sent his triple-shot macchiato flying onto the pearl gray carpet, inside the glass box. The entire executive team, my family, is watching the show. They haven't moved, except to lean back slightly in their ergonomic leather chairs to avoid the splash zone. They are waiting, with the unique patience of the truly entitled, for the mess to disappear. The man cleaning it is old. His back is bent into a permanent question mark, and his movements are slow, methodical. He wears the drab gray uniform of the building's third-party maintenance staff. His name tag, pinned crookedly, just says Ray. He is meticulously blotting the stain, his knuckles rubbing the carpet, ignoring the ring of expensive shoes surrounding him. My aunt, Evelyn Marsh, the CFO, leans over to Marcus. Her voice is low, but sharp enough to cut through glass and boredom. I can read her lips more than hear her words, a skill you develop when you're always on the outside of the power circle. At that age, she murmurs, a thin smile playing on her lips, still pushing a mop cart. Guess he never really aimed for much in life. Marcus chuckles. A low, dismissive sound. My stomach clenches. It's a familiar feeling. A tight knot of useless anger. I hate the way they look at him, like he's not a person, just a malfunctioning appliance. Ray, for his part, doesn't look up. He just keeps blotting, his face obscured, a ghost cleaning up the messes of the living. He is the man everyone in the office sees every day but never looks at. The man who empties our trash, refills the paper towels, and vanishes before the real business begins. To my family, he is less than that. He is, as I've heard my cousin Caleb call him, the useless hourly hire. Ray finishes. He gathers his soiled rags, pushes himself up with a quiet grunt, and begins to back out of the room, pulling his cart with him. As he passes the glass wall, his eyes lift for just 1 second and meet mine. They are not defeated. They are not subservient. They are gray, clear, and shockingly sharp. It feels less like a glance and more like an assessment. Then he is gone. Just another shadow moving down the hallway. The meeting resumes. My light flashes, and I'm beckoned inside. An hour later, I'm in the basement-level break room, the one the executives never use. The coffee here tastes like burnt plastic, but it's hot. I pour 2 cups, one for me, and one in a fresh cup with a lid. I find him in the service hallway by the freight elevators, organizing his cart. Ray. He turns, up close. His face is a map of wrinkles, but those eyes are just as intense. I hold out the coffee. I saw you in the boardroom earlier. That looked rough. I thought you might want this. He pauses, looking at the cup, then at me. He slowly wipes his hands on a rag on his belt before taking it. His fingers are calloused and knotted with arthritis. They're not always like that. I lie. They're always exactly like that, he replies. His voice is gravelly, quiet. I hear footsteps and a laugh. It's Mark from sales, passing by on his way to the parking garage, playing savior again. Aspen, you trying to adopt all the strays I flush, turning away from Ray to hide my embarrassment. Shut up, Mark. Mark just laughs louder and disappears around the corner. I turn back, expecting Ray to be embarrassed, too. Instead, he's just watching me, sipping the coffee. He seems completely unbothered, Good people don't need validation. Kid, he says, his voice soft. He nods once at the cup. Thank you. He turns back to his cart. The conversation clearly over. I walk away feeling strangely unsettled, his words echoing in my head. My apartment is small. The kind of place you rent when you're still paying off student loans despite having a good job. The paint is chipping, and the pipes groan when the upstairs neighbor flushes. It's a world away from the Skyline Vertex headquarters. I drop my keys in the bowl, kick off my shoes, and the phone rings. Right on schedule. It's my mother, Linda, Aspen. Honey, how was work? It was work. Mom, were you nice to your aunt? Did you see Marcus? Her voice has that familiar strain of anxiety, the sound of someone constantly trying to please people who are impossible to please. They're fine. The meeting was fine. Good. That's good. A pause. I know what's coming next. You just have to remember how grateful we are. Aspen, your Aunt Evelyn and Uncle Marcus, giving you a place in the family company like that, after everything, you just have to be good. Don't cause any trouble. Just be helpful. I sink onto my worn-out sofa, rubbing the spot between my eyes where a headache is blooming. Mom, I'm a senior project manager. I earned my spot. I designed the tracking logistics platform they're about to sell. It wasn't given to me. Oh, Aspen, don't be difficult. You know what I mean. We're working class. Honey, they're not. They don't have to help us. Just be grateful. Grateful. That's the word that defines my existence in this family. I am the daughter of the black sheep, Linda Cook, formerly Linda Cole, the woman who horrified her wealthy family by running off and marrying a mechanic instead of the lawyer they'd picked out. My father worked himself into an early grave, and ever since, my mother has been trying to crawl back into the family's good graces. Her method of crawling back was me. I am the grateful niece. The competent, overeducated, underpaid expert they keep on staff to fix the messes their own children make, all while reminding me that I'm lucky to even be in the building. I am a specialist. But in their eyes, I am charity. The weekend brings the mandatory Sunday dinner. This time, it's at Evelyn's monstrous glass and steel house in the suburbs, a place so sterile it feels like an art gallery. I'm nursing a club soda, trying to blend into the minimalist white furniture, when I overhear Evelyn and Marcus in the adjoining study. They've left the pocket door open a crack, their voices carrying over the polite classical music. The new plan is clean, Marcus is saying. We leverage the tracking platform sale to trigger the buyout clause, and the shares, Evelyn asks, the old man's trust is still a problem. The lawyers say his original setup was deliberately vague. That's the beauty of it. He left the controlling interest undefined. With him out of the picture, and Linda signing over her proxies ages ago, we just need to consolidate. This tracking platform is the key. Once it's valued, we'll have the capital to absorb the remaining shares and take the company fully private. No more ambiguity. My blood runs cold. They're talking about my project, and they're talking about the old man, my grandfather, the man who supposedly cut my mother off without a penny. A sudden commotion at the front of the house breaks the tension. I hear my cousin Caleb's loud, braying laugh. What the hell is he doing in here? This is the executive lounge, old man, not the service porch. I walk out of the living area, standing in the grand entryway, looking lost and confused. Is Ray? He's in his same gray uniform, holding a small toolbox. He must have been called here for a repair. I was told to check the thermostat in the main hall, Ray says, his voice barely a whisper. Evelyn sweeps out of the study, her face a mask of polite disgust. Caleb, please, handle this. We have guests. He's probably tracking dirt all over the marble. Caleb mutters, grabbing Ray by the elbow. Come on, Grandpa. Let's get you back to the servants' entrance. He was just looking for the thermostat, I say, my voice louder than I intended. The room goes quiet. Evelyn, Marcus, and Caleb all turn to look at me. It's the look I've received my whole life, the glare that says, "Who are you to speak, Aspen?" Dear, this doesn't concern you, Evelyn says, her tone dripping with false sweetness. He's just doing his job. I insist. looking at Caleb's hand still clamped on Ray's arm. Caleb rolls his eyes and shoves Ray slightly toward the door. Whatever, just get out of the main lounge. Ray doesn't look at me this time. He just shuffles out the door, the toolbox rattling in his hand. The classical music swells to fill the silence, and everyone returns to their conversations. The unpleasantness already forgotten. I feel sick. I need to leave. I make my excuses, retrieve my coat from the cloakroom, and head for the front door. I pass the grand staircase, and I stop. At the far end of the hall, near the entrance to the library, Ray is standing perfectly still. He isn't walking toward the exit. He is staring up at the wall. I follow his gaze. It's the only piece of old art in this modern house, a massive, oil-painted portrait of a man in a 1980s suit, looking severe and powerful. It's the official portrait of Raymond Cole, the founder of Skyline Vertex Solutions, the man I only know as a myth, the grandfather who hated my mother so much he disowned her. Ray is just standing there, his head tilted, studying the painting with an intensity that borders on reverence. Or maybe it's recognition. I look at the portrait, Raymond Cole. Strong jaw, deep-set eyes, a formidable presence even in paint. Then I look at Ray, hunched, weathered, invisible. But the light from the hallway catches the high plane of his cheekbone, the set of his jaw under the gray stubble, the shape of his eyes. I feel the floor tilt beneath me. He looks nothing like the man in the painting, and yet he looks exactly like him. The bone structure is identical. The sharp, assessing gaze I saw in the boardroom is the same gaze captured in the oil paint. It's Raymond Cole, hollowed out by time, stripped of his power, wearing a janitor's uniform. Why is this old janitor standing in my aunt's hallway, staring at the founder's portrait like he's looking in a mirror? Why does the face of Raymond Cole, the man who supposedly abandoned my mother, look more like the man who cleans our toilets than anyone in my family? A terrible thought begins to form, a question that shakes the very foundation of my life. If my whole life is a story my family told me, a story of betrayal and abandonment, what if I'm being lied to about my own origins? The image of Ray staring at that portrait burned itself into my mind. But Monday morning means the machine restarts, and you run just to keep from being crushed. Skyline Vertex Solutions presents itself as a cutting-edge tech logistics company. Our office is a monument to modern corporate ambiguity, open-plan seating under exposed ductwork. Frosted glass huddle rooms, named after local rivers, and giant screens flashing our KPIs in real time. We don't have meetings, we have sinks and deep dives. We don't have problems, we have growth opportunities. It's all a sleek, billion-dollar facade painted over a rotten 19th century foundation. This is a family business, and I am the wrong side of the family. My role is Senior Project Manager, which is corporate speak for the person who actually does the work. My baby, my creation, is Project Atlas. It's a predictive logistics tracking platform, an AI-driven solution that I designed from the ground up. It's the single most valuable piece of proprietary tech this company has produced in a decade. On the official organizational chart, however, Project Atlas has one lead, Caleb Marsh, my cousin, Aunt Evelyn's son, a man whose primary skills involve expensive loafers and taking credit. My screen flashes. A new Slack message from Caleb, sent at 8:57 p.m. I'm still at my desk, trying to debug a data bottleneck. Caleb, hey, need you to fix the projection models for the quarterly review. The numbers look weird. I sigh. Typing back. Aspen, which numbers? The ones I sent you this morning were accurate. Caleb, IDK, all of them. Just make it look good. I have to present this at 9 a.m. tomorrow to the board. And hey, can you clean up the slide deck? It looks kinda busy. THX? I stare at the message. He's at a steakhouse. I know this because his Instagram story, posted 10 minutes ago, showed him laughing with a T-bone. He's dumping his entire presentation prep on me the night before, so he can present my work as his own. Again, this isn't just him being lazy. This is the system. I do the work. Caleb gets the visibility. I get a paycheck. He gets the path to an executive suite. I build the engine. He gets to sit in the driver's seat and pretend he knows how to steer. The next day, I'm running on 4 hours of sleep and stale coffee. I pass the main break room, and the gossip hits me like a physical wall. A group of junior associates is huddled by the espresso machine, speaking in excited whispers. Did you hear the Series C funding round is close? I heard it's massive. Like tens of millions. My God, if that closes, the family's valuation is going to be insane. They're all going to be 9-figure rich. I freeze. The Series C funding, that's what the quarterly review was for. That's why Evelyn and Marcus were talking about consolidating shares. And what's the centerpiece of the pitch to new investors? The one thing driving up the company's valuation project Atlas, my project, I suddenly understand. If this funding round succeeds, it's not just a win for the company, it's the final move in my aunt's chess game. She'll use the new valuation, anchored by my technology, to cement her power, buy out any ambiguous shares, and lock down the company for good. Caleb will be lauded as the genius who made it happen, and I'll still be the grateful niece, stuck in a cubicle, too far down the food chain to ever get a sliver of the credit or the pie. I'm not just being sidelined, I'm the fuel they're using to launch their rocket, and they plan to leave me on the launch pad. That evening, I'm walking to my car in the executive garage. I only park here on nights I work late, using a temporary pass. The concrete is damp, the air thick with exhaust. That's when I hear the clatter of plastic and paper, followed by Caleb's voice, sharp and ugly. Watch where you're going, you useless old idiot. Look at this mess. I round the row of Teslas and Porsches. There's Ray, on his hands and knees again, his mop cart overturned. A stack of files from Caleb's open briefcase is scattered across the damp floor. Caleb stands over him, his face furious. You probably got grease all over my reports. Useless. You're just a useless goddamn Caleb, I shout. He snaps his head up, surprised. Aspen, what are you doing here? I'm helping him. I crouch down, my knees hitting the cold concrete, and start gathering the scattered papers. Ray doesn't look at me, his face tight and pale. He just scrambles to pick up the papers, his hands shaking slightly. I told you to leave it, Caleb snaps at me. He can clean up his own mess. You knocked it over. Why are you talking to him like that? I stand up, handing the stack of papers to Caleb. Caleb actually laughs, a short, incredulous scoff. He snatches the files from my hand, talking to him like what? He's the janitor. He's lucky to have a job. Seriously. Aspen, who do you think you are? His union rep? He straightens his tie, slams his briefcase shut, and glares at me. You need to figure out which side you're on. Cousin, stop defending the help and start remembering who signs your paychecks. He clicks his car remote and strides off, leaving me and Ray alone in the echoing garage. I turn to Ray. He's slowly righting his cart, his movements stiff. Are you okay, I ask? He nods, not meeting my eyes. He finishes organizing his bottles and rags, then finally looks at me. His gaze is heavy, and the sharpness I saw before is tinged with a deep, profound sadness. Don't waste your words on people who've never wanted for anything in their lives. Kid, he says, his voice barely a rasp. They don't understand the language. He pushes his cart away, his rubber-soled shoes squeaking on the concrete, and disappears into the service elevator. The call from my mother comes before I've even unlocked my apartment door. Her voice isn't anxious this time. It's cold. Caleb called your Aunt Evelyn. Evelyn called me. What in God's name did you think you were doing? Aspen. What are you talking about? Mom, yelling at Caleb. In the garage. In front of a janitor. Are you trying to get fired? Are you trying to humiliate this family? He was abusing an old man. Mom, he called him useless. He threw, that old man is an employee? Aspen Caleb is your superior. He's going to inherit a huge part of that company one day. You don't disrespect him. You just don't. I slump against my own front door, the key still in my hand. So I'm supposed to just stand there and watch. That's the rule. Be grateful and be silent. Yes, she cries, her voice breaking with desperation. That is the rule. You don't understand what they can do to us, what they can take away. There's a pause, and when she speaks again, her tone shifts, becoming sickeningly wheedling. Honey, you're a smart girl. You're pretty. Caleb, he always liked you. If you were just nicer to him, if you were more agreeable, you wouldn't have to worry about your rent anymore. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it. He could take care of you. We could finally be secure. My stomach turns. I feel bile rise in my throat. It's not just a suggestion. It's a sales pitch. She wants me to marry my cousin, the man who just dehumanized a senior citizen. She wants me to sell myself for security. I have to go. Mom, I say, my voice flat. Aspen, wait, just think about. I hang up. I stand in my dark apartment, shaking. I am not a person to them. I am not family. I am a commodity, a high-functioning, problem-solving, potential broodmare they can trade for a better position at the table. And the worst part. The only thing of value they see in me, my agreeableness, my potential as a wife, is a lie. My real value, the code I wrote, the platform I built, is the one thing they are actively, methodically stealing. That's when the decision crystallizes. I am done being grateful. The next morning, an email pops up. It's an internal chain, a simple scheduling request, but someone has accidentally included the entire project leads distribution list instead of just the exec leads list. My name is on the first, not the second. I'm an accidental recipient. I read the chain. It's from Evelyn. Subject Atlas licensing proposal. Draft attached is the draft proposal for the SynCorp deal. I want this finalized by end of day. Marcus. Review the financials. Caleb. Review the technical specifications and make sure your developer bio is accurate. This is the linchpin for the Series C. People. Let's not screw it up. My hand is shaking as I click the attachment. It's a 20-page proposal to license Project Atlas to a major multinational conglomerate. It's the deal they were whispering about. And on page 5, under the heading, Our Team, there is a professional photo of Caleb. Underneath, it reads, Caleb Marsh, Vice President of Innovation. Mr. Marsh is the chief architect and primary solution developer of the Atlas platform. Having designed the predictive AI engine from its inception, I stopped breathing. He didn't just take credit. He erased me. I sit there for a full minute. Then, I act. I open a new, encrypted folder on a personal flash drive, one I keep hidden in my wallet. First, I save the email, the whole chain, including the headers showing I was an accidental recipient. Second, I go into the Atlas platform's source code repository. I pull the version history, every check-in, every module, every line of code for the past 18 months. My username, a cook, is on 90% of the commits. Caleb's name, C. Marsh, appears only on cosmetic updates and typo fixes. I export the entire log. Third, I go into our Slack history. I search for every conversation with Caleb. Aspen, can you handle this? I'm swamped. Hey, the server is crashing. I don't know why. Fix it. Just build the whole module. I trust you. I'll review it later. I save them all as PDFs. Finally, I access the internal security camera archive. I find the footage from 2 weeks ago, the day I delivered the finalized technical specifications manual for Atlas. I find the clip me, standing at Caleb's desk, handing him the 1,000-page, bound document, him, signing the internal delivery receipt without even looking up. I export the clip. I have the code. I have the messages. I have the video. I have a file full of proof, and I have no idea what to do with it. That night, I can't go home. I end up in the sub-basement, in the humming server room, the only place that feels quiet. It's late, after midnight. Ray is there, mopping the concrete floor. He doesn't seem surprised to see me. I sit on a metal stool, the hum of the servers vibrating through my bones. I don't know why, but I start talking. I tell him everything. The project, Caleb, the slide deck, the email, the stolen bio. He just listens. He mops around me, his movements slow and rhythmic, his presence calming. He doesn't interrupt. He just lets me empty the poison. When I'm done, my voice is hoarse. They're going to sell it, my work, and they're going to erase me, and then they're going to get tens of millions of dollars for it, and I'm just the grateful niece who should be quiet. Ray stops mopping. He leans on the handle, his back to me. "Have you ever wondered?" he says, his voice quiet. "Who really owns this place?" I let out a bitter laugh. "My boss? I don't even know anymore. They always talk about Raymond Cole like he's a ghost. The founder who either died or just disappeared. From what I can tell, he was probably just another greedy old man who built this whole toxic system in the first place." Ray turns around slowly. His face is impossible to read in the dim light, but for a second, I see that flash of sharpness again, that intensity. It's mixed with something else, something that looks almost like pain. He hides it quickly, his expression smoothing back into the impassive mask of the janitor. "Maybe," he says, turning back to his work, "or maybe you should wait and see." The flash drive in my wallet felt like a small, cold stone. I had the proof. But Ray's question echoed in my head. Who really owns this place? I was about to find out more than I ever wanted to know. My mother insisted I attend another family meeting that weekend. This wasn't a casual dinner. It was a formal planning session at Marcus's country club. The occasion: the upcoming 80th birthday of the mythical Raymond Cole. I found the idea grotesque. They were planning a party for a man they treated as a ghost, a man who had apparently disowned my mother and, by extension, me. But my mother was desperate to maintain appearances. So I went. I sat in a stiff-backed chair, nursing a watery iced tea, while Evelyn and Marcus debated catering costs. I excused myself to find the restroom, and on my way back, I paused in the hallway. The door to a private study was ajar, and I heard my mother's voice, not anxious this time, but sharp with an old, buried anger. "You have no right to talk about him. Evelyn, you have no right. I have every right." Evelyn's voice was like ice. "I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who managed this family and this company while you were off playing house with that failure. He was a good man. He was a mechanic. Linda, you threw away everything this family. Your inheritance to marry a man with grease under his fingernails. And it broke Father's heart. He never forgave you. That's why you're in this position. That's why you and that girl of yours have nothing." My breath caught. This was the story I'd been told my whole life. My mother, the romantic rebel. My grandfather, the unforgiving patriarch. But then my mother's voice came back, and the story shattered. "Broke his heart," she shrieked, a sound so unlike her usual defeated murmur that I flinched. "You broke him, you and Marcus, circling him like vultures, whispering in his ear how I'd betrayed him. You just couldn't stand that I wouldn't marry the man you picked out for me. You just wanted me out of the way so you could have it all. How dare you?" Evelyn hissed. "It's the truth. You twisted a disagreement into a war. You told him I hated him. You told me he never wanted to see me again. You're the reason I haven't spoken to my own father in 20 years. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. I stumbled into an alcove, hands pressed to my mouth, a half-truth. My mother hadn't just left. She'd been pushed. The story wasn't about love. It was about control. And the most important part, the part that hit me like a physical blow, my grandfather was alive. Not just a distant, angry memory. Alive. And apparently still angry. Still being managed by Evelyn. When the meeting mercifully ended, my mother was pale and silent. Her eyes red. I drove her back to her small apartment. The silence in the car thick and heavy. "Why didn't you tell me?" I finally asked, parking the car but not turning off the engine. Linda wouldn't look at me. She just stared at her hands, twisting a tissue. "Tell you what, that my sister stole my family from me, that your grandfather is still alive. But so sick and bitter he refuses to see his only daughter. He's alive, Mom. And Evelyn said he never forgave you. But you said they forced you." She finally looked at me, and the defeat was back, replacing the fire I'd heard earlier. "It's all true. Aspen. I did run away. I did marry your father against his wishes. And Raymond Cole, He is a hard man. He sees the world in black and white, betrayal and loyalty. Evelyn just cemented the narrative. She made sure he only ever saw me as the betrayal. Where is he, I asked. I don't know. Florida. Maybe some private estate. Evelyn and Marcus manage everything. They say his health is too delicate for visitors. They say he's still in charge, that he holds the majority of the shares in a trust, but that he's given them full proxy to run the company as they see fit. She started to cry. Fat, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. I've tried. Aspen. God, I've tried. I wanted him to meet you. When you got your degree, I sent a picture. When you got the job at Skyline, I wrote a letter. Evelyn's assistant always sends them back. Mr. Cole is not receiving personal correspondence. She told me to my face last Christmas. He doesn't want to see the trader's daughter. I thought of the man in the portrait, the man with Ray's eyes. A cold, sharp question cut through my confusion. Mom, if he hates us so much, why does he still hold the shares? Why hasn't he sold the company? Why hasn't he just cashed out and cut us off for good? My mother looked baffled, as if she'd never considered it. I don't know. Evelyn says he's just holding on, that it's his legacy. Or maybe, she added, her voice dropping to a whisper, it's just about the money. But that didn't feel right. It felt incomplete. A man who holds all the power but gives it to the people who supposedly betrayed him. It didn't add up. The tension at work became unbearable. The air was thick with the impending Series C funding deal. Caleb was insufferable, preening like he'd already won. He stopped by my desk, not even bothering to sit, just leaning over my partition. Big news. Cousin, he said, flashing his obnoxiously white teeth. The board just approved my appointment as a junior shareholder. My cut from the SynCorp license deal is being converted straight to equity. Congratulations. Caleb, I said, my voice flat, not looking up from my code. Yeah, it's pretty great. Once the deal is signed, we're going to be restructuring the whole innovation department, streamlining, you know. He tapped his pen on my monitor. I've been thinking, with your skill set, you might be a better fit over in QA. Testing, less creative pressure. You know, we'll need someone reliable to just check the boxes. I'll put in a good word for you. He was threatening me. He was going to steal my project, get rich off it, and then demote me to a dead-end job, all while pretending he was doing me a favor. I'll keep that in mind. Caleb, I said, my fingers tightening on my mouse until my knuckles ached. He sauntered off, whistling. 2 hours later, the email landed in my inbox. It was from Human Resources. Subject Confidential Performance Review Follow-up. Dear Aspen, in light of recent project milestones and feedback from department leadership, we are scheduling a mandatory performance review to discuss your role, collaborative efficacy, and future at Skyline Vertex. Please be available in Boardroom C tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your presence is required. It was signed by the head of HR and carbon copied to Evelyn Marsh, Marcus Cole, and Caleb Marsh. My blood turned to ice. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. That was the exact time I was scheduled to present the final, major stability update for the Atlas platform, the one that made it market-ready. This wasn't a review. It was an ambush. They were going to take my final update, then fire me for collaborative efficacy, for not being a good little soldier, for questioning Caleb and claim my work was finished by someone else. They had the motive, they had the power, and now they had the meeting scheduled. I grabbed my flash drive. I didn't know what to do. I just ran. I ended up in the basement. The server room was my only sanctuary, the only place where the logic of the code made sense. I expected it to be empty, but Ray was there. He wasn't mopping. He was standing in front of an open electrical panel, carefully wiping down the conduits with a dry cloth. The panel was massive, the main junction for the entire building's network, and laid out on a small folding table next to him wasn't a bottle of cleaner, but a roll of blueprints, a detailed schematic of the Skyline Vertex Solutions corporate network, the server architecture, the data pathways, the security firewalls. There were handwritten notes in the margins, red ink, notes that looked like corrections. He heard me and glanced up, not startled, just aware. He carefully folded the schematic and set it aside, but not before I saw the complexity. You get cleaning duty for the server racks now. Too, I asked, my voice shaky. He gave me a small, dry smile. He gestured to the wiring, just wiping down the dust. Can't have a fire. Bad for business. I looked at the schematic, then back at him. You look like you're defusing a bomb, not cleaning. Are you a janitor or an IT specialist? He chuckled. A low, rusty sound. I used to dabble in numbers. A long time ago. This is just old wiring. Nothing complicated. I leaned against a server rack, the cold metal seeping through my shirt. I was too tired, too scared to hide it. They're trying to fire me. Ray? He stopped wiping and looked at me, his eyes sharp. I got a meeting tomorrow. HR. The whole family. It's a setup. They're going to take my project, the Atlas platform, and kick me out. Ray was silent for a long moment. He studied my face, and I had that feeling again, that I was the one being analyzed. This platform, he said quietly, your work, is it good? It's not just good, I said, the pride cutting through my fear. It's perfect. It works. It's mine, and they're stealing it. He nodded slowly. He pointed with his rag to my laptop bag, where my flash drive was safely tucked away. You have copies of your work, I assume? Yes. Emails, code logs, everything. On their servers, he asked. On a flash drive. Good. He turned back to the panel, but his voice was firm. Keep an off-system backup. Aspen. Something completely disconnected from this building. An email to a private account. A hard drive you keep at home. Make it tonight. Why, I whispered. You think they'll wipe my drive, I think, he said, carefully closing the panel door. That people who are about to steal something valuable have a habit of accidentally pushing the delete button to cover their tracks. Don't give them the chance. I stared at him. This old man, this janitor, knew about off-site backups and corporate espionage. He knew far too much. He was the only person in this entire building who had given me a piece of advice that felt real, that wasn't wrapped in a layer of self-interest. He was the only one standing on my side. Ray, I said, who are you? He picked up his mop, the familiar tool returning to his hands, the mask of the simple janitor sliding back into place. I'm just the man who cleans the floors. Kid, go make your backup, and be careful tomorrow. He pushed his cart out of the room, leaving me alone with the hum of the servers. I walked back up to the lobby, my mind racing. I was going to follow his advice. I was going to fight. I passed the main lobby, heading for the exit. The overhead lights were dimmed, but the spotlight on the founder's portrait was always on. I stopped. I looked at the face of Raymond Cole, the arrogant tilt of the head, the powerful set of the shoulders, the eyes that saw everything. Tonight, the way the light hit the canvas, the shadows fell differently. The painted face seemed to move, to soften. The arrogance faded, and I saw the lines of age, the weight of decades. The light caught the high plane of his cheekbone, the set of his jaw under the paint. It was Ray's face. It wasn't a passing resemblance. It wasn't a coincidence of bone structure. It was him. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had to brace myself against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. It was him, and he was watching me. He was testing me. The coffee, the garage, the advice in the server room. My God. I turned and ran from the building, the eyes of the portrait burning into my back. The image of Ray's face morphing into the founder's portrait followed me home. I didn't sleep. The realization that I was being watched, that I was being tested by the ghost everyone whispered about, didn't make me feel safe. It made me feel like a pawn in a game I didn't understand. My fear was a cold, hard thing. But beneath it, a new feeling was taking root, a cold, hard rage. The ambush meeting was scheduled for the next day. This morning, HR sent the first volley. It was an email, polite and venomous, with an attachment. Aspen, to help facilitate a productive conversation tomorrow. We've attached a draft of your performance evaluation for your review. Please come prepared to discuss these points. I opened the document. It was a masterpiece of corporate assassination. My name was at the top, but the person described was a stranger. Aspen demonstrates difficulty in aligning with the company's core family values, exhibits a lack of collaborative spirit when interfacing with executive leadership, shows resistance to top-down strategic direction on key projects. They weren't just firing me, they were building a case, meticulously crafting a paper trail to paint me as insubordinate, difficult, and the classic kill shot not a cultural fit. It was designed to destroy my credibility, ensuring that if I ever tried to fight back, I'd look like a disgruntled, problematic employee. The meeting wasn't an execution. It was the part where they read the verdict after the execution was already done. That night, I didn't just back up my files. I built an arsenal. I went home, locked my door, and took the flash drive from my wallet. I plugged it into my personal laptop, a machine that had never touched the Skyline Vertex guest Wi-Fi. I created a new encrypted volume, one protected by a 40-character password. I dumped everything into it, the email from Evelyn, the server logs, the Slack messages, but Ray's warning echoed in my head. People who steal have a habit of pushing the delete button. They weren't just going to fire me. They were going to erase my work and blame me for the deletion. I needed more than a backup of the past. I needed a record of the present. I drove back to the office at 10 p.m., using my access card. The open-plan floor was dark, save for the green and blue server lights blinking from the glass-walled IT room. I sat at my desk, the silence of the office oppressive. I opened the source code for Project Atlas. I was the architect. I built the house. I knew where all the secret passages were. For the next 3 hours, I coded. I built a silent listener, a tiny, invisible piece of code that I embedded deep within the platform's administrative kernel. It was disguised as a routine performance patch. From now on, any action taken using an executive-level admin account would be logged. Not just the login, but the action. Every query, every data modification, every file deletion, and the log wasn't being saved to the main server, the one they could wipe. It was being piped, encrypted, to a private, third-party cloud server I'd set up under a false name, paid for in cash using a prepaid debit card. They thought they owned the system. I was reminding them I had the blueprints. I was about to leave when I had a better idea, a riskier one. I knew they needed my final update to make the platform stable enough to sell. They were planning to take it from me during the performance review. I left my terminal on. I left my session unlocked. A fireable offense in any other circumstance. Tonight, it was bait. I went to the basement break room Ray's territory to get a coffee I didn't want, keeping my phone in my hand. I gave it 5 minutes. When I came back, walking silently on the carpeted floor, my trap had been sprung. Caleb was sitting in my chair, my desk. He was so arrogant, so comfortable in his assumption of ownership that he didn't even bother to look over his shoulder. He was on his phone. The speaker activated, his voice low and confident. No, I'm at the office late," he was saying. I could hear the smile in his voice. Just polishing the final proposal for the SynCorp deal. Yeah, had to get my hands dirty, dive into the code. Just inserting my finalized developer bio now. I stopped, 10 feet behind him, hidden in the shadow of a concrete support pillar. I watched as he clicked on the proposal document, the one on my desktop. He scrolled to page 5. I saw my name, technical lead, Aspen Cook. His fingers moved on my keyboard. Tap, 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 backspace, 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 developed and architected by Caleb Marsh, VP of Innovation. He clicked save, then he opened his email, attached the file, and sent it to his Aunt Evelyn with the message. Final draft is ready for SynCorp. Looked good. I didn't breathe. I just lifted my phone, its screen dark, and hit the record button on the video app. I held it steady, bracing my hand against the pillar. I captured it all. The back of his head, my monitor, his hands on my keyboard. I filmed him deleting my name and typing his own. I filmed him clicking send. He stretched, yawned, and locked my computer, whistling as he walked away toward the elevators. I stood in the dark, my heart hammering, looking at the recording on my phone. Proof. Undeniable. The final piece of the puzzle fell into my lap the next morning. Just before dawn, I was still at my desk, running on fumes, when an automated email hit my inbox. Subject: CCTV SYS, Alert Storage Array 4, Corruption Warning. It was a system-wide alert, sent to all project managers and department heads. It meant one of the hard drives holding the security footage was failing. As per protocol, the system automatically attached a random 2-minute clip from the affected drive as a diagnostic file. Most people would delete it as spam. I opened it. The footage was grainy, black and white, time-stamped at 2:13 a.m. that same morning. It was from camera 7B, the one pointed directly at the main server room door. The door opened. A figure stepped through. The person was bulky, heavy-set, with a familiar, rolling gait. I knew that walk. It was my uncle, Marcus Cole. But he was trying to hide. He wore a dark hoodie and a New York Yankees baseball cap pulled low, his face completely obscured in shadow. He used a master keycard, not his own executive card, to open the door. He slipped inside, and the door clicked shut. The clip ended. What was the acting CEO doing? Disguised. In the server room at 2 a.m, I knew where to go. I found Ray in the sub-basement, buffing the floors in the long service corridor. He didn't seem surprised to see me, as if he'd been waiting. I didn't say anything. I just walked up to him and held out my phone, playing the blurry, silent video. He watched it once, then twice. He squinted, leaning in close. "You're looking at the wrong thing," he rasped, his voice a low gravel. "What do you mean?" "It's Marcus. I know it is. Forget the hat," Ray said, pointing a gnarled finger at the screen. A man trying to hide his face often shows what he can't hide. Look at the wrist. I paused the video, zoomed in. The sleeve of the hoodie was pulled up slightly. On the man's left wrist was a watch. It was bulky, metallic, catching the dim light. "That's a Patek Philippe," Ray murmured. "The Nautilus. Costs more than this building's cleaning budget for a year. I've seen him wear it in every board meeting he pretends to run." He pointed again. To the other hand, the one swiping the card. "And the ring? Pinky finger. Gold. Signet ring. That's the Cole family crest." My blood ran cold. He was right. Marcus hadn't even bothered to take off his $1 million watch or his family ring to commit his crime. He was in there. I whispered. Ray looked up from the phone, his eyes meeting mine. He was... Now, what did he do? How can I know he could have done anything? Wiped the logs, planted a virus. Ray just looked at me, a silent, challenging gaze, and I realized he wasn't asking a question. He was prompting me. I remembered my new audit log. I ran back to my desk, leaving Ray to his buffer. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I logged into my private cloud server. I opened the file, and there it was. Timestamp 2:14 a.m. User M. Cole. Action Manual Data Override. Syslog 11A. Atlas. Action Manual Data Purge. User Log A. Cook. Action Insert. Corrupt File Packet. Atlas Kernel. He wasn't just deleting my work. He was actively planting corrupted files in the platform's core, all timed to trigger when I ran my update. He was setting me up to be the one who crashed the entire system. He was creating the gross negligence they needed to fire me and, likely, sue me into oblivion. I felt dizzy, sick. I stumbled back to the basement. Ray was still there, waiting. "They're framing me," I said, my voice hollow. "They're not just stealing it. Ray, they're blowing up the whole system and putting my fingerprints on the bomb. They're going to ruin me. If they destroy my reputation like this, I'll never get a job in this industry again. I'll be finished." I leaned against the wall, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a vast, cold dread. Ray stopped the buffer. The sudden silence was deafening. He turned to me, his face unreadable. Just an old janitor looking at a hysterical employee. "If you had the chance," he asked, his voice very quiet, "to speak to the man who really owns this place, not them, the real owner, what would you say to him?" The question was so strange, So direct. It cut through my panic. I looked at this man who was both a janitor and a king, hiding in plain sight. I didn't think about strategy. I didn't think about what he wanted to hear. I just told the truth. I'd tell him his company is rotten, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Not fear. I'd tell him his family is a nest of vipers, sucking the life out of the people who actually do the work. I'd tell him to either trust me, trust the person who actually built his precious platform and let me do my job, or sell the whole damn thing. Sell it. Burn it to the ground. I don't care. Just stop letting these people use his name to destroy others. I was breathing hard, my words echoing in the concrete hallway. Ray stared at me for a long, heavy moment. The mask was gone. I wasn't looking at a janitor. I was looking at Raymond Cole. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't just sadness or sharpness. It was a flicker of approval. He nodded once, very slowly. That answer, he said, his voice so soft I almost missed it, is big enough for a test. He picked up his mop bucket and walked away, leaving me to face the meeting that would decide my life. I didn't even have time to go home. I was staring at the encrypted audit log on my personal laptop, my hands shaking. When my desk phone buzzed, it was 1 p.m. My execution had been scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow. Aspen. It was Brenda, the head of HR. Her voice was flat, the usual corporate cheer completely gone. There's been a schedule change. We're moving your performance review. We need you in boardroom C, now. The line clicked dead. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. They were pulling the trigger while my back was turned. My blood ran cold. But I grabbed my flash drive, shoved it deep into my pocket, and stood up. The walk to boardroom C was the longest of my life. I pushed open the heavy glass door. It was a tribunal. They were all there, arranged around the mahogany table like a firing squad. Aunt Evelyn, at the head, her face a mask of profound, maternal sorrow. Uncle Marcus, beside her, looking at his watch, radiating impatience. Caleb, slouched in his chair, refusing to meet my eyes, a nervous smirk on his face. Brenda from HR, already clicking through a deck on the main screen, and one other man, a man in a dark, perfectly tailored suit, with the calm, predatory stillness of an in-house lawyer. He was the one who confirmed it. This wasn't a performance review. This was a termination for cause. Aspen, thank you for joining us, Brenda began, her voice professionally sterile. We've had to accelerate this meeting due to a critical incident that occurred early this morning. She clicked to the first slide. It was a wall of red text. Critical failure Atlas platform, timestamp 2:19 a.m. At approximately 2:19 a.m., Brenda read, the Atlas platform experienced a catastrophic kernel failure. This seems to have occurred during a series of unauthorized, high-level configuration changes made to the system. The lawyer slid a thick, bound report across the table toward me. That failure, Ms. Cook, he said, his voice smooth and cold, caused the entire tracking system to misroute 120 containers from our largest client. The initial damages are estimated to be north of $300,000, and that's just today. My God, they were doing it. They were blaming me for the sabotage Marcus had committed. We immediately pulled the server logs to identify the source, Brenda continued, her eyes fixed on her laptop. The system shows only one user actively logged in and modifying the kernel at that time. She clicked the slide. My name, A. Cook, filled the screen. That's a lie, I whispered, my voice gone. That's not possible. We also found these. Brenda slid a thin folder of printed emails toward me. I recognized my words, but they were sliced apart, taken out of context, and stitched back together to form a monster. I'm the only one who knows how this system works. If leadership doesn't back off, I'll be forced to take action. I will not let my work be compromised. They had painted me as a disgruntled, unstable employee who had sabotaged the company on her way out. Evelyn finally spoke, her voice thick with practiced sympathy. She reached a hand toward me, stopping just short of touching my arm. Aspen, darling, we have always considered you family. We know you've been under enormous pressure. We know you feel very protective of your work." She looked at Marcus, then back at me, her eyes glistening. It was a perfect performance. "We don't believe you did this maliciously, Aspen. We believe it was a terrible, tragic mistake, an error in judgment." The lawyer slid a new, much thinner document over the table. It was laid on top of the damning report. Voluntary separation and release agreement. "Given the circumstances," the lawyer said, "and Mrs. Marsh's generosity, the company is prepared to offer a solution that avoids further unpleasantness." Brenda picked up the narrative. "We are offering a one-time severance payment of 2 months' salary. In return, you agree to resign. Effective immediately, you will take full responsibility for the system error, and the company will agree to keep the details of this incident internal. We won't report the sabotage. You'll be free to move on." I scanned the fine print, my head swimming. Admission of gross negligence. Waiver of all future claims, including but not limited to intellectual property. A non-disclosure and non-disparagement agreement so restrictive I would be sued if I even admitted I'd worked here. They weren't just firing me, they were buying my work, my silence, and my entire future for the price of a used car. Caleb, who had been staring at his hands, finally looked up. He tried to look sympathetic, but he just looked sick. "Come on, Aspen, just sign it. It's the best way. For everyone. You get some cash, and this all just goes away." He forced a weak smile. "In a year or two, you know, when this blows over, I'll put in a call for you. Help you land on your feet." The pathetic, hollow promise from the man who had personally stolen my work made me want to scream. I looked past him, at my aunt. My voice was a dry croak. "And Project Atlas, the SynCorp deal." Evelyn's mask of sorrow flickered. She hated being questioned. "That is not your concern, dear," Marcus finally spoke, his voice a low growl. "The Atlas platform is the property of Skyline Vertex Solutions. It always was. Your employment here is over. Aspen, this is just a question of how it ends." My hand was shaking. I saw my entire future collapsing, blacklisted, sued, broke. I could feel the pen in my hand, the overwhelming, crushing pressure to just sign, to make the pain stop, to crawl away. And then I heard Ray's voice in my head. Good people don't need validation. I thought of him, on his knees, cleaning up their mess. I thought of his last words to me in the basement. "That answer is big enough for a test." This was it. This was the test. I pushed the agreement back across the table. No. The room went utterly silent. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Brenda from HR frowned. The lawyer's placid expression didn't change, but he seemed to focus on me for the first time. Brenda sighed, as if I were a child having a tantrum. She reached into her portfolio and slid a single, different piece of paper toward me. It was a draft of a legal complaint. "Aspen, I urge you to reconsider," Brenda said, her voice now hard. "If you refuse to sign the separation agreement, the company will have no choice but to protect its interests. This is a draft of the lawsuit we will be filing." I read the lines: breach of contract, gross negligence, willful destruction of company property, seeking damages in excess of $300,000. This was the other side of the trap, the stick. Sign away your life, or we will personally and publicly bury you. The fear vanished. It was gone, replaced by something cold and sharp and bright. I looked the lawyer dead in the eye. "I want to see the server logs." He blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "The server logs," I repeated, my voice clear and strong. "The full, unedited admin logs from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. this morning, not your cherry-picked screenshots. I want the full packet and action history, pulled live from the server, on that main screen, now." Caleb flinched. Marcus's face turned a darker shade of red. "That's impossible," Marcus snapped, waving his hand dismissively. "The server it's down. Due to the very crash you caused, the system is locked. We can't access it. We were lucky to pull these initial reports before it went dark. It was a good lie, a plausible lie. But I knew the system was fine. I knew he was blocking me. I finally understood. The trap was complete. They had their story, they had their fabricated evidence, and they had a broken server that prevented me from proving my innocence. They had cut off my every escape. I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the silence. "I am not signing anything today," I said. My voice was shaking, but not with fear, with rage. "I will be retaining my own lawyer to review these accusations." Evelyn stood up. Her face transformed. The mask of the loving aunt was gone, replaced by the cold, reptilian fury of a monarch defied. "If you walk out of that door, Aspen, it will be noted in your file as an act of non-cooperation," she hissed. "You will be terminated for cause, effective immediately. Your access will be cut before you reach the elevator, and we will be filing that lawsuit by 5 p.m. "Then do it," I said. I turned my back on all of them, on my family, on the lawyer, on the life I was supposed to be grateful for. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped out. I didn't look back. I made it to the elevator, my body on autopilot, to the lobby, out the front doors into the cold afternoon air. My hands were trembling so hard I couldn't get the key into my car door. I had just lost my job. I was about to be sued into oblivion. I had nothing, but I hadn't signed. I hadn't let them win. I kept the one thing they couldn't take from me. I finally got the car unlocked and was leaning against the door, just trying to breathe, when I heard the squeak of a mop bucket on the concrete floor of the garage. Ray, he was by the service elevator, calmly wringing out a mop, as if it were any other day. He didn't even look up. "Meeting go all right, kid?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. A wild, hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. "Oh, it was perfect. Went just like you'd expect. They just informed me they're kicking me to the curb and suing me for $300,000 for the privilege." I waited for him to say, "I'm sorry," or "That's terrible." Instead, he was silent. He stopped his work. He just looked at me, a long, quiet, appraising look. He wasn't looking at a fired employee. He was looking at someone who had just finished the test. He seemed to be weighing a decision. He looked at the elevator, then back at me. "Be here tomorrow morning," he said, his voice firm and low. "Early, 7 a.m. "Before anyone else gets here." "Why?" I asked, my voice raw. "So I can get arrested at the door." "Because," Ray said, turning back to his bucket, "there's someone who wants to meet you. Someone who needs to hear your side of it, before everything gets decided for you." I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying Ray's final cryptic words. "There's someone who wants to meet you." I got into my apartment, and the lawsuit threat felt real enough to suffocate me. I was terminated. My access was cut. By now, Evelyn would have filed the suit. My life was over. I sank onto my sofa, too tired to even turn on the light, and opened my personal laptop, just to stare at the abyss. And there, in my personal inbox, was an email. It had arrived at 4:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the close of business. The sender was an address I didn't recognize, from a law firm I'd never heard of. Price, Harding Associates. The subject line was "Confidential Privileged Skyline Vertex Solutions, Ms. Aspen Cook." My heart stopped. I thought it was the lawsuit, a process server in digital form. My hand trembled as I clicked it. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was an invitation. "Dear Ms. Cook, we are a specialized firm in labor rights and intellectual property disputes. We have been retained by an anonymous third party to offer you a pro bono consultation regarding your employment and creative claims against Skyline Vertex Solutions. We have already taken the liberty of reviewing the preliminary facts and believe your case has significant merit. We have attached a sample of the data we are working from. Please click the secure link below for an immediate virtual consultation, if you are amenable." Attached to the email was a single, password-protected file. The password was in the body of the email. Truth needs no validation. Ray's words. Good people don't need validation. I swallowed, my throat dry, and typed the password. The file opened. It was my audit log. The secret, encrypted log I had piped to a private cloud server. The one I had built. The one no one should have been able to access but me. I clicked the link for the virtual consultation. A video window popped up, and a face resolved on my screen. She was sharp, in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back into a severe bun and a gaze so intense it felt like it could pierce the screen. She wore a crisp white blouse, no jewelry, and sat in an office that was all glass and steel. "Ms. Cook, I'm Jordan Price." Her voice was as sharp as her gaze, fast and precise. "Thank you for joining me. I know you've had a difficult day." "Who are you?" I managed to whisper. "How did you get that log? How did you know any of this?" As the email stated, "I've been retained by a party who has a vested interest in the truth," Jordan said, ignoring the how. "My client has provided me with a comprehensive data package. They believe you are the victim of corporate malfeasance, intellectual property theft, and a coordinated campaign of workplace harassment." She shared her screen. My jaw dropped. It wasn't just my audit log. It was everything. It was a folder, neatly organized. Exhibit A, CCTV, Marcus Cole, 2:13 a.m. It was the clip I'd seen, but this version was crystal clear. High definition. You could read the Patek Philippe name on the watch face. Exhibit B, Slack logs, Caleb Marsh. Not just the ones I'd saved, but all of them. His entire Slack history, downloaded from the server. Exhibit C, screen recording, Caleb Marsh, 10:17 p.m., my video, the one I took on my phone. But this wasn't my shaky phone video. This was a high-resolution, direct-feed screen recording from my workstation. Someone had been recording my screen while I was recording Caleb. Exhibit D, SVR, log M. Cole vs. A. Cook. A side-by-side comparison of Marcus's admin actions and the evidence they had presented against me, showing the exact moment he planted the corrupt file and falsified the logs. It was a perfect, pristine, undeniable case. Who, I whispered, my mind reeling. Who has this? Who could get this? This is everything. This is access to the entire server, the security system, the workstations. Only the primary system owner or the highest possible controller could have this. Jordan Price just looked at me, her expression unreadable. "My client is a man who believes in checking the receipts. Ms. Cook, he has been aware of the discrepancies at Skyline Vertex for some time." "Ray," I said, the name just slipping out. Jordan's expression didn't change. She didn't confirm or deny. "My instructions are simple. First, you are to say nothing, to anyone, not your mother, not your friends. You have been terminated, but you have not yet been served with a lawsuit. They are waiting for you to make a move, to send a panicked email, to post on social media. You will do nothing. You will not touch any more data. You will not log into any system. You will be a ghost." And then what I asked, I just let them sue me. They won't. For the first time. Jordan almost smiled. It was a thin, cold, dangerous expression. Because tomorrow morning, we are making the first move. I will be at the front entrance of the Skyline Vertex building at 7:30 a.m. You will be there at 7:15 a.m., as instructed by Ray. We will go in together. Go in, my access is cut. They'll call security. Your access is irrelevant. You will be my guest. And I have an appointment. I spent the night in a fever dream. I didn't sleep. My mind kept trying to reconcile the two images. Ray, the janitor, with his mop and his sad, knowing eyes, and Ray, the client of a high-powered IP lawyer, a man who could pull surveillance from the deepest levels of the company. I kept dismissing it. It was impossible. He was a kind old man who had seen too much, who must have reported what he saw to the real owner. That must be it. He was just a messenger. He's just a janitor. For God's sake. At 6:45 a.m., I pulled into the Skyline Vertex garage, parking in the visitor section. I walked into the main lobby at 7:15, my hands ice cold, my stomach churning. The lobby was empty, gleaming in the early morning light, and there, by the main glass wall, was Ray. He was in his gray uniform, slowly and methodically squeegeeing the inside of the floor-to-ceiling windows. He looked exactly as he always did, invisible, unassuming, just a part of the building. He saw me. His eyes met mine. He didn't smile. He just gave one, tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Then he turned back to the glass, leaving a perfect, streak-free shine, a silent acknowledgement. You came. Good. At 7:30 on the dot. The main doors hissed open. Jordan Price walked in, not in the blouse from the video call, but in a charcoal gray suit that looked like armor. She carried a sleek leather briefcase. She didn't look at me. She walked straight to the main security desk. The receptionist, Sarah, was just settling in with her morning coffee. "Good morning," Jordan said, her voice crisp in the quiet lobby. "Jordan Price, here for a 7:30 a.m. meeting with the primary shareholders representative." Sarah frowned. Confused. "I'm sorry. I have an appointment," Jordan repeated, sliding her business card across the marble. "With the representative, the name on the appointment is Mr. Elias Vance, a name I had never heard in my life." Sarah, flustered, began typing. I don't see a Mr. Vance on the executive list." "Ma'am, he is not on the executive list. He is on the shareholder list. Please check the appointment log for Boardroom A. It was booked last night." Sarah's eyes widened as she typed. She found it. Oh, I see. Boardroom A. I'll have to call security. Ma'am, to get you an elevator pass. That won't be necessary. My colleague has one." Jordan turned, and for the first time, looked directly at me. "Aspen, please escort me." I was frozen. Before I could move, a new voice cut through the lobby. "What in the hell is going on here, Evelyn Marsh?" She had just stepped off the executive elevator, a travel mug of coffee in her hand. She was followed by Marcus, who was already on his phone, barking at someone. They must have gotten an automated alert that a meeting was booked in the main boardroom. Evelyn's eyes landed on me. Her face, which had been confused, turned to pure, unadulterated rage. "You," she spat, "you have 10 seconds to get out of this building before I have you arrested for trespassing." "She's with me," Jordan said calmly. Stepping in front of me, Jordan Price, counsel for Price, Harding Associates. "I am here for a scheduled meeting with the primary shareholders representative regarding the hostile actions of your board and the theft of intellectual property." Evelyn and Marcus both froze. "We don't know any Jordan Price," Marcus growled, pocketing his phone. "And we are the board. There is no theft. There is just a disgruntled employee who was fired for cause. That cause is what we're here to discuss," Jordan said, unruffled. Evelyn laughed. A cold, sharp sound. "This is absurd. You, and whatever ambulance you chased, have no standing here. This is a private building. Sarah, call security. Get them out." "I wouldn't do that," Jordan said, her voice still quiet. But now it held a new weight, as if on cue. A long, black, impossibly sleek car pulled up to the curb outside the glass walls. It wasn't a modern car. It was an old car. A classic, perfectly restored Bentley from the 1970s, shining like a black pearl. We all watched. Even Evelyn was momentarily distracted. A uniformed chauffeur stepped out of the driver's side. He walked to the back door, opened it, and stood at attention. We waited. No one got out. The lobby was silent. After a long moment, the chauffeur leaned in, retrieved a single, old-fashioned, hard-sided leather briefcase from the empty back seat, and closed the door. He then walked, not toward us, but toward the side entrance of the lobby. He walked straight past the security desk, his shoes clicking on the marble. He walked right up to Ray, who had just finished the last window. Ray put down his squeegee. He calmly wiped his hands on the rag on his belt. The chauffeur, his face completely impassive, held out the briefcase. Ray took it. He didn't look at it. He just held it in his left hand, his grip firm. The chauffeur bowed, a tiny, correct inclination of his head, turned, and walked back out of the building. I watched, my mouth dry, as Ray the janitor, the old man, the ghost, turned. He pushed his mop cart with one hand, the $1 million briefcase in the other. He walked past a stunned Evelyn and Marcus. He walked past Jordan Price. He walked to the private executive elevator, the one that required a special key. He pulled a key from his simple gray uniform pocket, inserted it, and the doors opened. He pushed his cart and the briefcase inside. Just before the doors slid shut, his eyes met mine. They were sharp, clear, and held the full, crushing weight of command. The doors closed, and he was gone. Evelyn and Marcus were staring at the closed elevator, their faces a mask of utter, profound confusion. Jordan Price smoothed the front of her suit. She turned to me and whispered, so low only I could hear, "A few masks are going to drop today. Just stay calm and tell the truth." The executive elevator doors opened onto the top floor. Jordan and I stepped out. The entire atmosphere had changed. The hushed, reverent air of the executive wing was gone, replaced by a frantic, nervous energy. Evelyn and Marcus were already halfway down the hall, storming toward Boardroom A, the main conference room. "This is a disgrace, a security breach," Evelyn was hissing into her phone. "I want to know who authorized that booking." Marcus just shoved past his assistant, who was trying to hand him a tablet. "Get legal in there, now, and get Caleb, and get Linda. I don't know what this is, but we're ending it. Get Linda." My mother. My stomach twisted. They weren't just confronting a legal threat. They were gathering the family to circle the wagons and put me back in my place. Jordan didn't slow her pace. She walked with a calm, measured rhythm, her briefcase in hand, as if she were walking into a meeting she had paid for. I just followed in her wake, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. When we reached the boardroom, the company lawyer, the same one from my termination, was already inside, speaking in low tones to Caleb, who looked pale and sweaty. Evelyn swept in and took the seat at the head of the table. "All right, Ms. Price, was it? You've forced an unauthorized meeting. You've brought this trespasser." She gestured to me without looking back into the building. "You have 60 seconds to explain yourself before I have security escort you both out." "That won't be necessary," Jordan said, placing her briefcase on the table and opening it. "We are here to discuss the gross malfeasance of this company's acting officers and the systematic theft of my client's intellectual property." "Your client," Marcus sneered, taking his seat. "Your client is a terminated employee who is currently under investigation for destroying company property." Just then, the door opened again. My mother, Linda, was hustled in by Marcus's assistant. She looked terrified, her eyes wide, darting from Evelyn to Marcus, and then landing on me. Her face crumpled. "Aspen, oh, God, what have you done?" "She's done nothing." "Linda, sit down," Evelyn commanded. My mother, conditioned by 20 years of intimidation, immediately sat in a chair by the wall, as far from the table as possible. Evelyn smiled, a thin, tight expression of control. She had her audience. She had her victim, her accuser, and her family as witnesses. She was in her element. "Now," Evelyn said, clasping her hands on the table. "Ms. Price, I understand you're pardon the term an ambulance chaser. You've convinced my niece, in a moment of emotional distress, to pursue a frivolous claim. Let me be clear, so we don't waste any more of our valuable time." She nodded to the company lawyer, who dimmed the lights and turned on the main projection screen. My performance review slides flashed up, the fabricated emails, the faked log showing A. Cook crashing the system. "This is the evidence," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with false patience. "Evidence of Ms. Cook's gross negligence, which has cost this company hundreds of thousands of dollars. We were prepared, out of love, to handle this internally, to protect her. We offered her a generous separation package to avoid the shame of a public lawsuit. We were trying to show mercy, as a family." She turned her gaze on me, her eyes like chips of ice. And she responded by hiring you. This is a profound, profound betrayal. A betrayal of whom, exactly, Mrs. Marsh? Jordan Price's voice cut through the self-righteous monologue. She stood up, holding a small silver remote. Before we discuss love and family, I, too, have a few items for the screen, if you don't mind. She walked to the podium and, without asking, plugged her own laptop into the system. The company lawyer started to object, but Jordan was too fast. The screen flickered, and my evidence was replaced by her desktop. Let's start with the intellectual property theft, Jordan said. My client, the true architect of the Atlas platform, was informed that her work was being presented as someone else's. For example, the SynCorp licensing proposal. She clicked a file. It was my high-resolution, direct-feed screen recording. The video filled the room, my workstation, my desktop, and the back of Caleb's head. The room was silent as we watched him, on my computer, delete my name and type his own. We watched him attach the file. We watched him send the email to Evelyn. Caleb went from pale to a sickly, greenish-white. He sprang from his chair. "That's not real," he stammered, looking frantically at his mother. "That's a draft. I was cleaning up the formatting. That was a placeholder name." "A placeholder name," Jordan repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "You place-held her name with yours, clicked save, and sent it to the client. An interesting workflow. And one that corresponds perfectly with this." She clicked again. A Slack conversation. "Caleb. Just build the whole module. I trust you. I'll review it later." "Caleb. Hey. The server is crashing. I don't know why. Fix it." "Caleb. Can you clean up the slide deck? It looks kinda busy. T-Tex." "This," Jordan said, "is a 10-month history of the VP of Innovation asking the insubordinate employee to do his entire job for him. This is inadmissible," the company lawyer snapped. "You obtained this illegally." "I assure you, I did not," Jordan said. "Now, let's move on to the gross negligence claim. The server crash at 2:19 a.m. She clicked again. The screen filled with the crystal-clear CCTV footage of the server room door. We saw the time, 2:13 a.m. We saw the bulky figure in the Yankees cap. We saw Marcus Cole. Evelyn shot to her feet. "This is outrageous. That is a deep fake. That is slander. Who authorized this? Who gave you access to our internal security system?" She was screaming now, her mask of maternal grief completely gone. "This is illegal surveillance." Jordan Price remained perfectly, terrifyingly calm. She clicked one more time. A document appeared on the screen. It was a legal authorization form. It granted Price, Harding Associates, full and unrestricted access to all Skyline Vertex Solutions digital and physical surveillance systems, all server logs, and all internal communications, for the purpose of a full-spectrum audit. At the bottom was a digital signature. The name was blurred, redacted. All we could see was the signature block, and the first initial, scrawled with an elegant, old-world flair, R. Marcus's face went slack. He stared at the R and seemed to shrink in his chair. Evelyn's rage turned to panicked confusion. She spun, her eyes wild, and pointed a trembling finger at me. "You," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You did this. You went to him, didn't you? After everything we've done for you, you ungrateful little bitch. You went behind our backs and betrayed this family." I stood up, and my voice, when it came, was not the voice of the grateful niece. It was cold, and it was mine. "I didn't betray anyone, Evelyn," I said, meeting her gaze. "I just showed the truth to the person who had a right to see it." "And here," Jordan Price continued, as if Evelyn hadn't spoken, "is that truth?" She split the screen. On the left, the fabricated log my family had used against me, showing A. Cook crashing the system. On the right, the real audit log, the one from my hidden listener. The room watched, in dead silence, as the log played out in real time. Timestamp 2:14. A.M. User M. Cole. Action Manual Data Override. sys log 11a, timestamp 2:15 a.m., user m. Cole, action insert corrupt file sign. Packet, Atlas, kernel, timestamp 2:16 a.m., user m. Cole, action manual data. Purge, user log a. Cook. Timestamp 2:17 a.m., user Cole. Action create false log. User a Cook. It was all there. A perfect digital confession. Marcus hadn't just crashed the system. He had planted a bomb and then meticulously framed me for the explosion. The company lawyer, who had been muttering, "Inadmissible," went silent. I watched him lean over to Marcus, his face pale with horror. He whispered one word, his voice just loud enough for me to hear. "Controlling. He's controlling the shares. He's not just a figurehead." The air in the room was so thick, so heavy with fear and revelation. I thought I would choke on it. Evelyn was staring at the screen, her mouth open. Finally, blessedly silent. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Caleb was just gone, a hollow shell. My mother was weeping silently into her hands. This was the moment, the checkmate. And then, at the absolute peak of the tension, the main boardroom door hissed open. In pushed a gray plastic mop cart, its wheels squeaking on the hardwood floor. And behind it, in his drab gray janitor's uniform, was Ray. He looked at no one. He just started pushing his cart along the far wall, toward the windows, as if he was just there to empty the trash. The spell was broken. Evelyn, seeing a target for her rage, a return to the reality she knew, exploded. "What is he doing in here?" she screamed, stabbing a finger at him. She fumbled for the intercom on the podium. Sarah, who let this filth into a closed executive meeting, get security up here. Get him out. Get him out now." Ray didn't stop. He didn't look at her. He just kept pushing his cart, his movements slow and steady. He pushed it right up to the head of the table, right next to Evelyn's chair. He stopped. He reached down, and with one hand, he lifted the heavy, old leather briefcase, the one from the Bentley, and placed it on the mahogany table. It landed with a solid, definitive thud. The room went silent again. Ray reached into the breast pocket of his cheap gray uniform. He pulled out a wallet, but he didn't take out a driver's license. He pulled out a key card. It wasn't the standard blue employee card. It wasn't the silver executive card. It was black, solid black, with a single gold chip. Evelyn, Marcus, and the lawyer all stared at that card as if it were a scorpion. Ray leaned past an uncomprehending Evelyn. He swiped the card through the master console on the podium, the one only the CEO could activate. The system chirped. The projection screen, which was still showing Marcus's digital fingerprints, flickered and went black. A new screen appeared, a simple, text-based login prompt. "Welcome, primary owner. Please authenticate." The room was so quiet I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears. I felt my hearing dim, as if I were suddenly underwater. Ray, the janitor. Ray, the ghost. Ray, the man my family had dismissed as useless, just logged into the entire company with the highest possible authority. The words, "Welcome, primary owner," hung in the dead air, pulsing on the screen. The room was a vacuum. Sound, motion, even thought, had been sucked out. Evelyn was frozen, her hand still clutching the intercom, her mouth slightly open. Marcus had gone a shade of gray I had only ever seen on concrete. My mother was staring, her hand over her heart, as if to keep it from escaping. And Ray, he stood at the head of the table, next to the briefcase and the mop cart. A perfect, absurd contrast, the man who owned the building and the man who cleaned it, occupying the same space. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up with one hand and unzipped the front of his gray uniform. He shrugged it off his shoulders, letting it pool around his waist. Underneath, he was wearing a simple, dark gray, button-down shirt. He reached up with his other hand and took off the worn gray janitor's cap. He tossed it onto the cart. His hair was silver, thinner than the man in the portrait, but it was the same hair. Then, he peeled off the calloused, stained work gloves, one finger at a time, and dropped them, one by one, onto the floor. The man who remained was thinner, older, and far more dangerous than the Ray we all knew. He was Raymond Cole. He clicked a latch on the old leather briefcase. It opened with a quiet, expensive snick. He didn't pull out a laptop. He pulled out a single, thick, leather-bound document. He placed it on the table in front of him. The original Articles of Incorporation, the company charter. He tapped a key on the podium console. The welcome. Primary owner's screen vanished. It was replaced by a photograph. It was an old, faded news clipping. A man in a 1980s suit, much younger, laughing, cutting a grand opening ribbon in front of this very building. It was the man from the portrait. It was the man standing at the head of the table. The smile was the same. The eyes were the same. There was no doubt. There was no room for denial. A choked, strangling sound came from the chair by the wall. My mother, Linda, she rose on trembling legs, her hand outstretched. Dad. It was the first time I had ever heard her say the word. It was a child's voice, full of a pain so old it was terrifying. My own body was numb. I felt dizzy, disconnected, as if I were watching this from the ceiling. The janitor who had talked to me in the basement, the man I had pitied, the man I had laughed at was my grandfather. Evelyn finally found her voice. It was a brittle, high-pitched laugh that shattered the tension. Dad, she tittered, walking toward him, her hands fluttering. Dad, what is this? This is a joke, right? A very, very strange joke. She tried to pat his arm. You're supposed to be in Zurich. You're sick. Your doctors said you shouldn't be traveling. Raymond looked at her hand on his arm, and then at her. He didn't move. He just looked at her, his gaze flat and cold. Evelyn's hand dropped. Her smile withered. I have not been in Zurich for 6 months, he said. His voice was no longer the gravelly rasp of Ray. It was clear, resonant, and dripping with an authority that chilled the blood. He sat down. He sat in the chair Evelyn always claimed, the one at the head of the table. I faked the treatment, he said, his voice calm, conversational, as if discussing the weather. I faked the reports from the doctors. I faked the power of attorney that gave you discretionary management. He looked at Marcus. I faked the narrative that my health was too delicate for any visitors. It was surprisingly easy. You all wanted to believe it. It made your lives so much simpler. He tented his fingers, looking around the table. I did it to see what would happen to my house if the master was gone and the children were left in charge. To see, when I was no longer a man of power, but a man of no importance, how I would be treated. He explained it. The past few months, he had an old friend, the owner of the third-party maintenance company, create a file, a new employee. Ray, a man with no history, no family, just a need for a quiet job. He'd been working the night shift for 2 months before he switched to days. I hired Ms. Price's firm, he said, nodding to Jordan, who stood like a silent sentinel. To conduct a full, independent audit, I gave them access to everything. They are the ones who have been filtering the data, the cameras, the server logs, your private emails, your cousins, he said, glancing at me. Rather illuminating screen recordings. My shock was curdling. It was turning into a hot, stinging feeling in my chest. I wasn't just a bystander. I was part of the experiment. You tested me, I said. My voice came out choked, accusing. That coffee in the garage, the server room you were testing me? Raymond's sharp gaze snapped to mine. He did not avoid it. He did not apologize. Yes, he said, simply. I tested all of you, he said, his voice dropping. I tested the children who claimed to be dutiful, who sent me fruit baskets in Zurich while they were busy leveraging my assets and plotting to steal my company. His eyes slid to Evelyn and Marcus. I tested the daughter who ran away, he said, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly as it fell on my mother. To see if, after all these years, she had found the strength to stand up, or if she was still just afraid. "And yes, Aspen," he said, turning fully to me. "I tested you, the granddaughter I had never been allowed to meet, the one I was told was ungrateful, angry, and opportunistic, the traitor's daughter. I had to see for myself." His voice grew cold again. He looked back at Evelyn and Marcus, who were no longer trying to speak. They were just trapped. "You two," he said, his voice low, "played a very long, very patient game. You experimented with my assets. You schemed for years to push me into a ceremonial role so you could suck this company dry. You lied to my face, you lied to my lawyers, and you lied to your own sister." He then looked right at me, and his words filled the room. "And the granddaughter you told me was a worthless, ungrateful burden was the only person in this entire building who brought a cup of hot coffee to an old, useless janitor, the only one who, not once, but twice, stood up to a bully on his behalf, with absolutely nothing to gain, the only one," his voice dropped, "who built something of true value, and then refused to back down when you tried to steal it from her." Tears were streaming down my face. I hated them. They weren't tears of sadness. They were hot, angry tears of betrayal that he had put me through this, that my entire life had been a lie, and under it, a feeling so new and terrifying I couldn't name it, the feeling of being, for the first time in my entire adult life, completely and powerfully defended. Raymond's gaze left me and found my mother, who was still standing by the wall, weeping. "Linda," he said. His voice was different now. The iron was gone. It was just the voice of an old man. "I was a fool. I was a hard, unforgiving man. I didn't understand your choice. I didn't understand the man you loved. I only understood loyalty to the company." He looked at Evelyn with a sudden, burning contempt. "And I let her twist my pride into a weapon. I let her tell me you hated me. I let her build a wall between us. I am sorry. For that. For the time we lost." My mother let out a sob. A lifetime of pain in the sound. He let the moment hang. Then he turned back to me. The iron was back. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Aspen," he said. "I didn't do this for forgiveness. I did this for truth. I have put you through an ordeal you did not deserve. You have been lied to, stolen from, and framed by your own family. You have every right to walk out of this room, to take Ms. Price and sue us all into the ground." He paused, leaning forward. "But I have to ask. Today, I am standing with you. I am putting the full weight of this company, my company, behind you. If I do that, are you willing to fight this to the end? Are you willing to see the truth all the way through, even if it means dragging the Cole name through a scandal that will be talked about for years?" I stood there, shaking. My mother was crying. My aunt and uncle were staring, defeated. My cousin looked like a ghost. My entire life, I had been the grateful niece, the one who had to be quiet, who had to be thankful for scraps, who had to swallow the insults. I looked at Raymond Cole, my grandfather, the man who had put me through hell, and the only man who had ever offered me a sword. I took a deep breath. The tears stopped. "I have been fighting alone my whole life," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I'm tired of it. If someone is finally willing to stand with me, I won't back down." My words hung in the air. A final, unrevoked declaration. Raymond Cole watched me, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded, as if a contract had just been sealed. He turned his attention away from me. The emotional reunion, the confrontation, was over. The execution was about to begin. His gaze fell on the company lawyer, the man who had been whispering inadmissible just minutes ago. "Mr. Davies," Raymond said, his voice hard as iron, "you are an employee of the Skyline Vertex Corporation, and as the sole, primary, and controlling shareholder of this corporation, I am informing you that your clients, Mrs. Marsh and Mr. Cole, no longer have the authority to speak for this company. Their management proxies are hereby revoked, effective immediately. Is that clear?" Mr. Davies? His face pale, just nodded. Yes, Mr. Cole? Perfectly. Good. Then advise them on the legal definition of breach of fiduciary duty, corporate malfeasance, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You will find Ms. Price's evidence comprehensive. Evelyn, who had been momentarily stunned, found her voice again, a low, venomous hiss. You can't. The proxy. The papers we signed in Zurich, they gave us full authority. You can't just revoke them. Mrs. Marsh, Jordan Price said, stepping forward. She was no longer just my lawyer. She was his. You seem to be misinterpreting your position. You were never given authority. You were given a management contract, a contract that you have breached in approximately 47 different ways, all of which are documented. Raymond opened the leather-bound charter he had taken from the briefcase. This document, the one I signed 40 years ago, states that control of this company can never be transferred by proxy, only by a direct and public vote of the full shareholder, which is me, or by inheritance. You were, in essence, highly paid employees, and as of this moment, you are suspended, without pay. He slid a new set of prepared documents from his briefcase across the table toward Marcus and Evelyn. You are to surrender all company property, your key cards, your laptops, your phones. You will be escorted from the building. Ms. Price will be overseeing a full-scale internal investigation, effective immediately. Jordan Price picked up the narrative, her voice cold and dispassionate, as if reading a death sentence. Based on the evidence we've collected, she said, we have more than enough to proceed with a criminal referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the wire fraud, the securities violations, the conspiracy. It's a 20-year mandatory minimum, if I had to guess. Marcus made a choked sound. However, Jordan continued, Mr. Cole is sentimental. He wishes to keep this a family matter, if at all possible. She slid a second set of documents after the first. They were resignation forms. You will resign from the board, effective immediately. You will forfeit any and all invested stock options and surrender your shares as part of a civil settlement. You will return, in full, the commissions and bonuses you received from the fraudulent SynCorp proposal, as well as all compensation you've received in the last 36 months. You will do this, she said, her voice dropping. And in return, Mr. Cole will agree not to pursue criminal charges. It was a complete and total annihilation. Evelyn stared at the papers, her hands trembling, and then she laughed, a wild, sharp, broken sound. You can't, she shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. You can't do this to us. We sacrificed everything for this company. I gave you my entire life. You sacrificed nothing, Raymond said, his voice flat, cutting through her hysteria. You sacrificed your integrity. You sacrificed your sister. You sacrificed my relationship with my own daughter. You didn't sacrifice for this company. Evelyn, you sacrificed this company's morals to pay for your dividends. There's a difference. Caleb, who had been silent, a ghost in the corner, suddenly lunged forward. It wasn't me. It was them, he pleaded, looking at Raymond, his eyes wide with a pathetic, desperate fear. I was just doing what they said. I was following orders. It was her. He pointed at me. She confused me. She made it seem like I never wanted to steal anything. Jordan Price, without even looking at him, tapped her laptop. A new window opened on the screen. It was another chat log, a private one, between Caleb and a college friend. Caleb, yeah. The old man is basically a vegetable in Switzerland. Caleb, Mom, and Marcus are letting me run point on this new tech deal. The chick who built it is this cousin of mine, a total pain in the ass. Always acts like she's smarter than everyone. Caleb, don't worry. I'll handle her. By the time the deal is done, my name will be on the patent, and she'll be lucky to be checking my code for typos. It's the perfect steal. Caleb's words hung in the air. A perfect testament to his character. He sank back into his chair, his face collapsing, and that, finally, was what broke my mother. Linda Cook, who had been weeping silently by the wall, stood up, She walked forward, past me, and stood in the middle of the room. She was no longer crying. Her face was white, her eyes blazing. She looked at Evelyn, her sister. "For 30 years," Linda said, her voice low and shaking with a newfound power. "For 30 years, you have called me the traitor. You have told me I was the one who abandoned this family. You have called my daughter ungrateful and difficult. You have held your forgiveness over my head like a weapon, making me beg for scraps." She took a step closer. Evelyn flinched. "You," Linda said, her voice rising, "you were the traitor. You stood here, in this house, and you poisoned our father against me. You stole my daughter's work. You stole my sister's life, and you stole my father's company. You are the one who is rotten, not me. You." It was the single bravest thing I had ever seen her do. Raymond watched this, his face a mask of profound sadness and, perhaps, pride. He let the silence sit. Then he tapped the podium. "Mr. Davies, please have security escort Mrs. Marsh and Mr. Cole to their offices to clean out their personal effects. They will be supervised. Ms. Price, you will accompany them. Caleb." He glanced at his grandson. "We'll wait here. He and I have matters to discuss." Privately, the lawyer, now looking like a man just following orders, made the call. Evelyn and Marcus, defeated and silent, were motioned to their feet. As Evelyn passed, her eyes met mine. They were not sad. They were not apologetic. They were filled with a pure, black, bottomless hatred. As they left, Raymond turned to his assistant, who had been waiting outside. "Please schedule a company-wide town hall, all hands, this afternoon, 3 p.m. "Sir," the assistant asked, baffled. "I will be addressing the employees. They have been fed a diet of family culture and discretion for too long. They are about to get a taste of something new, the truth. I will not have my company run by rumors, the way they did." I thought of the gossip, the whispers. I thought of the junior associates in the break room, the people on my team who were just trying to do their jobs, the ones who had nothing to do with this. "What about the company?" I asked, the words coming out before I could stop them. Raymond turned to me. "What about it?" "It's going to be chaos," I said. "The Series C funding is dead. The SynCorp deal is dead. The CEO and CFO are both gone. You're going to scare everyone. Good people. People who had nothing to do with this. They're going to lose their jobs. This isn't just punishing them. This is burning the whole building down." Raymond looked at me, a long, searching gaze. He almost smiled. "I tested you," he said, "to see which side of the family you truly came from. If you were like me, willing to burn the whole house down to kill the rats, or if you were like your mother, always afraid of hurting someone, even when they deserve it." He nodded, a look of strange, sad respect on his face. "It seems you have chosen a much harder path. You want to save the house and kill the rats." He leaned back in his chair. "A very difficult proposition." "I can help," I said. "The platform, Atlas, it's stable. The work is sound. The team is good. We can save the technology. We just need a plan, a transition." "I see," he said. He looked at Jordan, who had returned, then back at me. "Your termination is, of course, rescinded. However, you are not, as of this moment, the VP of Innovation. You are, for now, a senior technical advisor to Ms. Price's internal investigation. You will help her understand what is real and what is fake. You will help her find the other rats. We will discuss ownership and your future when the house is clean." It wasn't a victory. It wasn't a promotion. It was a new, harder, more dangerous job. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." It was then, as the tension finally seemed to be resolving, that Evelyn's voice echoed from the doorway. She hadn't left. She was standing there, a security guard on either side of her, her face a mask of pure, triumphant malice. She was laughing. "You think you've won, old man?" she sneered, her voice bouncing off the walls. "You think this is a victory? You can suspend me. You can fire me. You can even try to sue me. But you're forgetting one thing." She took a step into the room, her eyes locked on Raymond. "You are 80 years old. You are mortal. And that will, the one you signed 10 years ago, when you were so angry at Linda. The one that left me and Marcus with everything." She smiled, a wide, terrible smile. "It's ironclad, and you are not in any condition to change it. Your doctors, my doctors, have all certified your delicate state. You can play king for a day, Dad. But when you die, and it will be soon, it all still comes to us." The room went cold. She was right. He had built his own trap. He had faked his own incompetence, and she was going to use it against him. Raymond Cole just looked at her. He didn't seem angry. He didn't seem surprised. He just seemed tired. He picked up the black key card from the podium. He turned it over in his old, gnarled fingers. "Yes," he said, his voice very quiet. "That's exactly why I'm not dead yet. Evelyn." He stood up, walked past her, and looked at all of us. At me, at Linda, at Caleb. "And that is why we will be meeting in this room again, this afternoon, at 4 p.m., with the new estate lawyers. We are going to read and sign everything." The afternoon air was heavy and still. At 4 p.m., we weren't in the main boardroom, but a smaller, formal auditorium on the 10th floor, the one reserved for shareholder meetings and major press events. The room was full. Jordan Price was there, along with two new, stone-faced lawyers I didn't recognize. A bonded notary sat at a small table, a stack of thick, ribbon-tied documents in front of him. My mother, Linda, sat in the front row, and I sat beside her. In the row behind us, under the watchful eye of a security guard, sat Evelyn, Marcus, and Caleb. They were not in handcuffs, but they were prisoners all the same. Their faces were hollow, gray with the realization that the game was truly over. A handful of senior VPs and key managers, the innocent ones I had worried about, had been summoned, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. Raymond Cole sat at the head of the room, not in a suit, but in the same simple gray button-down shirt he'd worn under his uniform. He looked like an old man, tired but resolute. "Thank you all for coming," Raymond began, his voice quiet, but it carried in the perfect acoustics of the room. "There has been a significant failure in leadership at this company, a failure of trust, integrity, and family. Today, we correct the course, not just for the future, but for the past." He nodded to the notary. "Mr. Hesh, if you would." The notary, a small, precise man, cleared his throat and picked up the first document. "We are here," the notary read, in a dry monotone, "to review the last will and testament of Raymond C. Cole, dated October 5th, 2003. This was it, Evelyn's last hope." I saw her sit up, her back straightening, a flicker of that malicious triumph in her eyes. The notary read through the legalese. It was exactly as Evelyn had boasted. It was a document written by a man blinded by anger and manipulated by his daughter. It spoke of his profound disappointment in his daughter, Linda, and her abandonment of her family. It bequeathed a small, token trust to Linda, and an even smaller one to any issue of her line, conditional upon a formal reconciliation and apology to the family, and then the payload. "The remainder of my estate," the notary read, "including all personal effects and my full controlling interest in Skyline Vertex Solutions, shall be divided equally between my daughter, Evelyn Marsh, and my son-in-law, Marcus Cole." Evelyn closed her eyes, a faint, smug smile on her lips. She had him. The notary put the document down. "That is the will of record," he stated. "And now," Raymond said, his voice cutting through the silence, "please read the codicil, the one dated 3 weeks ago." Evelyn's eyes snapped open. Her smile vanished. "What?" The notary picked up a second, much thinner document. "This is a codicil to the last will and testament of Raymond C. Cole, signed, witnessed, and filed 19 days ago. He cleared his throat. This codicil hereby revokes and replaces Article 4 and Article 5 of the aforementioned will. He began to read. It was a legal vivisection. It stated that, due to direct, personal, and irrefutable evidence of gross financial malfeasance, conspiracy to defraud the estate, and a sustained campaign of malicious falsehoods, the inheritance designated for Evelyn Marsh and Marcus Cole was revoked in its entirety. Evelyn made a small, strangled sound. The codicil continued. It specified that Evelyn and Marcus would be granted a one-time lump sum payment from a personal account, an amount the document described as sufficient for a simple, non-extravagant life, but even that was conditional. It would only be paid after they had, in accordance with the civil settlement, returned every dollar of ill-gotten bonuses and commissions from the SynCorp deal and other fraudulent activities. They weren't just disinherited, they were being billed. And then, the final section. The full controlling interest of Skyline Vertex Solutions and the remainder of the Cole estate, the notary read, shall be placed into a newly formed irrevocable trust. The primary beneficiary of this trust, and its appointed director upon my passing, shall be my granddaughter, Aspen Linda Cook. The room was silent. I felt my mother's hand grab mine, her nails digging into my skin. I couldn't breathe. Director, beneficiary, me. The document went on to detail the trust's mandate that the company must be run with absolute transparency and that a new corporate charter must be drafted within 90 days to establish permanent, binding protections for employee-created intellectual property. The notary finished. Signed, Raymond C. Cole. Evelyn was on her feet, her face a mask of purple rage. No, you can't. You are incompetent. I have doctors. I will sue you. I will tell the world you are insane. This is cruel. She was screaming, tears of pure hatred streaming down her face. You were always cruel, always a cold, hard bastard. Raymond didn't raise his voice. He just looked at her, his face weary. You are accustomed to playing the victim, Evelyn. It has been your most effective tool, but this time, all the cameras, all the server logs, all the sworn affidavits, and all the legal documents are standing on the side of the truth. You are not a victim. You are, for the first time in your life, simply accountable. As security moved to escort her out, Caleb, my cousin, finally broke. He stumbled forward, collapsing onto the floor in front of my chair. He literally, pathetically, knelt. Aspen, please, he sobbed, grabbing at the hem of my pants. Please, don't let him do this. You can talk to him. I'm sorry. Okay, I am so sorry. I was an idiot. I was scared of them. I didn't mean it. He looked up at me, his face a disgusting, tear-streaked mess of self-pity. We can still work together. I'll change, I promise. I'll change. Just please don't let them take everything. Please. Aspen. I looked down at him, at this man who, just yesterday, had been planning to demote me after stealing my life's work. This man who, in the garage, had laughed in my face and called me a union rep for defending an old man. I pulled my leg away from his grasp. You're right, Caleb, I said, my voice as cold and clear as ice. You are sorry. You're sorry you got caught. I stood up, so I was looking down on him. You never saw me as a colleague. You never saw me as family. You saw me as an assistant. You saw me as your tofu. I don't need an apology that is only being given because you lost your power. He stared at me, his mouth open, the realization hitting him. I was no longer a person he could manipulate. My mother stood up beside me. She looked at Evelyn, who was being held by the arm by a guard. From today, Evelyn, Linda said, her voice shaking but strong, you don't ever get to call my daughter ungrateful again. She has lived her life with more integrity, more honesty, and more grace than anyone in this godforsaken room. She put her arm around my waist, and for the first time, she was holding me up. The room was cleared. Evelyn, Marcus, and Caleb were gone. The managers were dismissed, their minds reeling. It was just me, my mother, Raymond, and Jordan Price. Raymond looked at me, a long, appraising gaze. You have a new name, Aspen Cook, a new title. If you want it, he gestured to the documents. You are, for all intents and purposes, Aspen Cole. You can have your name legally changed, your records updated. You will be the new head of this company, Chief Product Officer, CEO. The title is your choice. The power is yours. I looked at the documents, at the name Aspen Cole. It looked strange. It looked like a costume. I shook my head. I don't need your name to feel like I have value. Raymond. I said his name, not grandfather. It felt more honest. I did the work as Aspen Cook. I got fired as Aspen Cook. I think I need to fix this as Aspen Cook. I paused, then amended. But if having the Cole name makes it easier to protect the people who work here, if it gives me a stronger hand to sign the new policies, I'll think about it. But the work comes first. Jordan Price stepped forward. Aspen, just so you are aware, the trust protects the company's assets. It does not preclude you from filing a separate, personal civil suit against Caleb Marsh and Evelyn Marsh for damages related to the theft of your intellectual property. Your case is formidable. I thought about it. More lawyers, more depositions, more years spent in a room with them, reliving the theft, the humiliation. No, I said. I don't want their money. I don't want another fight. I want to build a policy right here, in this company, that makes it impossible for what they did to me to ever happen to anyone else. I'll use my new power for that. That's a better revenge. Raymond watched me, and his face, for a second, was no longer the CEO, no longer the janitor. It was just old. He looked vulnerable. You are, he said, his voice quiet. A better person than I am. Aspen. He looked at my mother, then back at me. Will you ever be able to forgive an old man who missed your entire childhood, who believed the lies, who tested his own granddaughter? I looked at him, at this brilliant, damaged, powerful, lonely man who had set this all in motion. I thought of the years of struggling, of my mother's desperation, of the feeling of being less than. I didn't have an easy answer. I don't live to get revenge for the past, I said, my voice soft. I live to make sure I don't repeat it on other people. The past, it's just a story. Raymond, we get to write the next chapter. That's all. He nodded, accepting it. It was all the absolution I could give. Later that evening, after the all-hands meeting where Raymond had, in calm, brutal detail, explained the change in leadership, I walked out of the building. I was exhausted. I was the interim chief product officer. I had a company to save. I walked through the service hallway on my way to the garage, and I passed the janitorial supply closet. The door was open, and just inside, parked in its designated spot, was Ray's old mop cart, the squeaky wheel, the half-empty bottle of gray cleaner, the worn handle. I stopped. I reached out, and I touched the cold, plastic handle. It was like touching the test, the invisible, impossible test that had changed my life and that I had passed without even knowing I was taking it. The revenge I had just taken part in it wasn't about burning everything to the ground. It wasn't about destroying Evelyn or Caleb. It was just consequences. It was about forcing people who lived in a world without consequences to finally face them. And in doing so, I had held on to the one thing that was never part of the test, the one thing that was mine, and mine alone, my dignity. I used to think he was just a poor, old janitor. But it turns out, the richest thing he was testing for in me wasn't how much money I had, but how I treated someone the world believed was no one. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Let us know in the comments where you're listening from. We'd love to connect and hear your thoughts. Please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.